In this lecture, we're going to learn about the stdbegin and stdend methods we can use to get iterators to a given container that we have. Now, these methods are going to be in addition to the begin and end methods we have learned about that we can call directly on container types, but you can use these methods especially for the array type, and because the row array is not an object, we can't really call the begin and end methods on them. If we try to do that, we will get a compiler error. But that's a shame because the array supports the most powerful kind of iterator you can think of, and that's a regular row pointer. Because if you think about it, a row pointer supports pointer arithmetic. So we can increment the pointer to move to the next location. We can decrement the pointer to move to the previous location. We can dereference the pointer and either read through the memory where the pointer is pointing or put in new data. So by thinking about this, the regular pointer to a row array is really the most powerful kind of iterator we can get in our C++ programs. But it is really a shame because we can't set up methods on a row array because it's not an object. So stdbegin and stdend were put in place to kind of set up a solution for that. And what we can do is pass a regular array into these methods, and these methods are going to return either a begin iterator or an end iterator. And that's going to allow us to even use row arrays in code that uses iterators that we have learned about so far. So let's stop the mambo jumbo here and show you a piece of code you can really look at to understand this. We have an std vector of integers here and we have some data inside. We can do the usual thing and say vi begin and really loop through this by calling begin and end methods to get hold of our iterators, and this is going to work. But the moment we set up vi as an array, this is not going to work, because row arrays are not objects, so you can't really call methods on them. Or in addition, they don't have the begin and end methods, so this is not going to work. But this will be throwing away all the powerful features we have for the pointer to this array here, because that's one of the most powerful kinds of iterators we can get in C++. So stdbegin and stdend were designed to kind of solve this problem, and what we can do is pass in any kind of container we know supports iterators, and we're going to get those iterators back and use them in code that expects iterators we have been learning about all along, and everything is going to work just fine. So in stdbegin you can either pass regular containers like std vector, you can even pass in row arrays, and this is going to work really well. Now that you know this, we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and play with this a little more. Here we are in our working folder. The current project is stdbegin and stdend. We will grab the code from the template files here and we will reuse that. And we can open this up in Visual Studio Code by dragging and dropping here. This is going to give us the main CPP file, so let's remove what we don't need and include our vector class. And we will set up a collection which is really going to be a vector by default, so this is what we have here. And we can loop through this using begin and end iterators like we have seen before. We can print this thing and we're going to see that our data is going to be printed out. Let's try to do that, so we can pass this through our compiler. The build is going to be good, nothing special here. And if we bring up a terminal window and try to run this program, you're going to see that we will see our data printed out from 1 all the way to 9. But some people might want to store the data in regular row arrays, or methods or functions you use in your C++ programs might need to work with regular row arrays. And if you happen to pass a row array to code that expects regular iterators, you're going to be in for a surprise because row arrays are really not objects. So if you try to call methods on them, you're going to get a bunch of compiler errors because the compiler won't know what to do with the syntax you're doing here, because vi is not an object now. So what are you trying to do by calling a method on something that is not an object? The compiler is going to be confused and you will get a compiler error thrown in your face if you try to build your program. This is what we have here. Let's go to the top and see if we can find our error. Request from member begin in vi, which is of non-class type. So An array is not a class type, and we have a problem here. Now, if you have been using C++ for a while, which you have done if you have hit this location in the course, you know that regular arrays have pointers that are really like iterators. For example, we can use those pointers to move through an array with pointer arithmetic by incrementing to move from one element to another. For example, we can decrement to move backwards. We can do all kinds of crazy things. So pointers to regular arrays are some of the most powerful iterators we can have in C++. But this is a shame because this is not working for us in code that uses regular iterators. Now we can solve this problem by passing this array into stdbegin and stdend. Those methods are going to return iterators that you can then pass to code that expects regular iterators, and everything is going to fall in place. So what we can do here is go down and set up a separator. I think we can do that. And we're going to go down and put in our code again, but now we're going to modify it to use the stdbegin and stdend methods. So we're going to say stdbegin and say vi. We're going to pass in our vector of integers, and we're going to say stdend, and we will pass in vi, and now you will see that the problem will go away. If we pass any kind of container, even row arrays, to these methods, it is going to give us a begin iterator, which is going to point to the first element in the collection. If we pass our collection into an AND method here, we're going to get an AND iterator, which is going to be pointing past the last element in the collection, and everything is going to work really well. You can see that right here. So if we pass our code through the compiler, let's do that. The build is going to be good as you see here. So we can clear and run Rooster, and we will see our data printed out, and everything is going to work really well. So if you need to pass row arrays in code that expects iterators, make use of stdbegin and stdend. That's going to make your life much more easy. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we will try and recap what we saw in this chapter. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.